This is a segment from The Annex, an academic sociology-themed podcast. For more, visit us on the web at theannexpodcast.com. So one person that I like to follow on Twitter is Kevin Gannon. He's a historian from Grandview University, and he's got a great Twitter feed. He's at the Tattooed Prof. And this morning he had a great thread on this argument published in the Chronicle by Jonathan Zimmerman. So I'm going to start off by reviewing Jonathan Zimmerman's argument, and then I contacted Kevin out of the blue. I've never met him, and I was like, "Can you do 5 minutes where you just sort of give an audio op-ed?" Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna read off the original argument by Zimmerman. I'll review it, and then I'm gonna put Kevin's take in here. I'm gonna insert it here.
Awesome.
And then maybe we can just chat about it after. So just so you know, Clayton has not had the chance to listen to Kevin's op-ed. So, he's working with one hand behind his back here. So in the article, Zimmerman argues in favor of keeping Silent Sam. Silent Sam is a Confederacy statue, I guess, on the UNC campus. It's one of those Southern Confederacy monuments that people put up because they were, mad about emancipation or voting rights or the South losing the Civil War or whatever. Do you have background on this? Like, what's the deal with these Confederacy monuments?
Oh, me? There's your answer. Yeah, I just all I know is most of them were put up like in the 19-teens, 20s, or early 20th century phenomenon throughout the South to put up Confederate statues. I don't know much about it beyond that.
Yeah, it's like they're cheap. They were mass produced, and townships were putting them in all over the place, I guess, to send a message to their African American minorities that this was still white ruled country.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Zimmerman is a historian at UNC, and he's okay with them taking the monuments down from their place of privilege, but he wants the monument to stay on campus in a history center. His idea is that UNC shouldn't erase its history, even the unseemly parts. He says that it would be a whitewash to get rid of Silent Sam altogether. So Kevin Gannon responds to this argument. I loved his Twitter thread, and I reached out to him, and here's what he gave me.
There were a lot of reasons to be baffled by the Jonathan Zimmerman piece on UNC's Silent Sam controversy that appeared a day or so ago in the Chronicle of Higher Education. But one of the most egregious claims he makes is that historians have remained silent on this controversy. It's right there in the title. Zimmerman's article says it's time for historians to break their silence about Silent Sam. Well, this is a patently absurd assertion, to be honest, and it's in doing so that I think Zimmerman unwittingly reveals his true purpose. Zimmerman doesn't seem to care so much about what Silent Sam represents historically, as he does about silencing the student voices who are actually answering that very question. To combat what he seems to characterize as unruly kids, Zimmerman argues that historians are obligated to break their silence to use the authority that we've been given by our disciplinary expertise, that we should intervene in this controversy whether a Confederate memorial should remain on the UNC campus, and indeed whether that memorial ought to be installed in a several million-dollar educational center. But historians have not been silent at all on this matter. Across social media, in newspaper articles about the controversy, in blog posts, and in other public forums, historians have pretty clearly weighed in on what Silent Sam means, what the memorial's origin story is, and why it's deeply problematic to retain such a clear symbol of white supremacy on a university campus. Most egregiously, Zimmerman's contention that historians have somehow remained aloof from this debate ignores the students and community members at UNC itself who are leading the effort to remove Silent Sam, and historians are quite prominent among them. I think what Zimmerman really means here is that historians who might agree with him have remained silent. And I would suggest that's actually an excellent strategy on their part, one perhaps Zimmerman should have considered as well. Because what we get is an apologia for white supremacy masquerading as a high-minded academic piece. It's condescending, it has inaccurate arguments, and they don't do anything so much as reveal Zimmerman's lack of interest or understanding in the actual historical issues involved in the matter of Silent Sam. Nowhere does Zimmerman reference, for example, the large body of scholarship on Confederate memorialization and the Lost Cause movement, which produced Silent Sam as well as numerous counterparts across the early 20th century South. Nor does Zimmerman seem to be aware of the vast scholarly work on memory and memorialization, which practically screams out its relevance here. Indeed, Zimmerman's argument that Silent Sam should remain on campus and serve as a way to educate the current generation about racism and white supremacy assumes that memorialization and education are exactly the same. Zimmerman suggests that removing the statue will silence the past and that we won't be able to learn the lessons that that past offers. Thus, his call for historians to vocally protect history. It's absurd to think that removing a monument to a white supremacist version of the past amounts to historical erasure, though, especially at a campus whose history department is one of the elite scholarly centers of the history of the South and of the history of the tangled legacies of slavery and white supremacy in the United States. Zimmerman's equating memorialization with education in the case of Silent Sam suggests that he hasn't thought very deeply at all about the actual history that underlays this monument and the entirely appropriate calls to remove it. So what we get in Zimmerman's screed instead is another example of the all too common white insistence that the violence and pain inflicted historically on black bodies be put into the service of educating whites who refuse to do that work themselves. Toward the beginning of his essay, Zimmerman declares, and I quote, "I understand and respect that many minorities at UNC denounce the History Center, arguing that a racist symbol like Silent Sam has no place anywhere on campus. But I think they're wrong. And the best way to show respect for them is to explain why. Anything less isn't respect," he says, "it's condescension." Well, I wouldn't argue that this condescending and myopic mess of an article is showing respect to anyone. It certainly doesn't show respect to historical scholarship. And for Zimmerman to suggest that his defense of a literal symbol of white violence isn't condescending is just not true. Zimmerman's whole article is an exercise in condescension, from a privileged white male academic who has never had to navigate a landscape riddled with physical and metaphorical reminders that some people think he is less than human. Given the complete illogic of his arguments and the lack of attention to any of the historians who've actually been speaking on this issue, I suggest Zimmerman's real purpose here was to clap back at student protesters, to lecture them about how short-sighted they are, and to position himself and other elite voices like him as the arbiters of what's really racist and what isn't. I would also submit that this is what the psychologists mean when they talk about projection.
All right, so Clayton didn't get a chance to hear the audio. So let me set it up for you a little bit, Clayton, what I gathered from it, right? It's like, I get from Kevin, it's like Silent Sam doesn't have to be memorialized by like keeping his statue on campus. Like there are photos, like we know it existed.
Yeah.
There are media clips, right? So you don't have to afford it like space to be visited on campus. That's number one. And number two, like what the argument that really resonated with me is like, why memorialize this argument? It's a terrible argument, about, or it was like a terrible idea putting Silent Sam up and statues like this. It was totally malevolent.
Yeah.
So like, what's being preserved really? It's not heritage. It's not like an argument that's worth arguing over or contemplating. It was just a malevolent statue that there's pictures of.
Yeah.
So why showcase it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I think maybe annoys me about it, maybe being euphemistic, the thing that bothers me is there's really like two different conversations. There's a conversation happening right now, and it's introducing a new conversation, right? So the conversation happening right now is, should it be taken down? Right. And muddying the waters with a secondary conversation of, well, what will happen to it when it is taken down? I'm perfectly fine with that conversation. Philosophically, intellectually, I find it to be an interesting conversation. But I don't think it actually contributes to the conversation right now, which is a full-throated, it should be taken down. Right. If I was, going to compare it to like my own identity and my own background, like if there was I'm Jewish. If there was an Adolf Eichmann statue in the middle of the University of Toronto, right?
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I just don't want to have to walk past it on my way to get a sandwich. Like,
totally.
That's what the conversation is. So for, somebody to introduce this intellectual conversation of, but what should we do after we take it down? Would
Yes.
actually annoy the shit out of me. It was like, hey,
Yeah,
that's
totally.
fascinating. Can we take it down now? Right? So I think that's part of it. I think, my read on should it be in a museum or not is just generally as a default position, defer to the people who are most affected, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what do the Black students at UNC think? What do they want done? Like, what did the Black alumni of UNC want done? And the
Right.
part of Zimmerman's piece that I'm most eager to express disapproval of is he argues for the reverse of what they want, right?
Yeah.
So he says that listening to them isn't a sign of respect, it's a sign of condescension, right?
Yeah.
If Black alumni and students of UNC don't want it in your museum, it would be condescending to listen to them. And I just really can't square that circle. I just can't understand the logic there.
Oh, Kevin takes immense exception to that part, and he's totally right about that. Yeah. It's completely condescending. I was completely convinced by his argument, and just so you know, so like to the listeners, I loved being able to broadcast basically like an audio op-ed. So like if anybody has a rant of 2 to 3 minutes about a topic that you care about that you think other sociologists would be interested in, send it to me. If it's something that we can air, I'd love to do it.
That would be awesome.
For more, visit us on the web, theannexpodcast.com.